Welcome back to my recap channel. Today we'll be looking at the American science fiction comedy movie Idiocracy. Beware of spoilers, take care and be cautious. The year 2005 serves as the backdrop for the film's premise. We are introduced to the notion that human evolution is changing. Most science fiction theories anticipate that humanity will become smarter and more advanced. However, humans' evolution changes for the worse because they are already at the top of the food chain. Over time, people become more stupid. Under these circumstances, Corporal Joe Bowers, a librarian in the U.S. Army, is approached by his superiors, who want him to participate in an important experiment. Joe, who intended to work as a librarian until retirement, is displeased but has to carry out the directives. Then, we are led into a closed-door discussion between some senior military officers. The other officers are presented with General Collins' suggestions. He claims scientists have developed a human hibernation capsule that can keep people alive indefinitely. It's done so that people can keep their best men alive when they're at their best and resurrect them when needed. Joe was selected as the first test subject since he is the most common soldier and has no close relatives. Similarly, they also needed a woman for the experiment, but the military wasn't the ideal fit. Collins decides to use Rita, a prostitute. Everyone in the room feels uneasy as he shows the officers photos of him and Rita's manager, Upgrade, having a good time together. At the end of his presentation, he says that the volunteers will be placed in the pods tomorrow and that the experiment will last a year. The authorities in the room aren't authorized to discuss the experiment with anyone because it is highly classified. Joe and Rita are there in the same waiting area the following day. Joe introduces himself and inquires as to Rita's region of origin. Rita claims to be a painter to conceal the fact that she is a prostitute. They are both then placed into two human hibernation pods and given IVs. Rita panics and tries to stand up, but Joe reassures her that the scientists are competent. He assures her that everything will be okay since they will only stay inside for a year. The two are finally trapped inside the pods. However, things start to go wrong when Officer Collins is detained as part of an attempted prostitution ring. Upgrade is also taken into custody with him for running a prostitution ring. As a result, no one is present to take care for the hibernation pods. The military base has been shut down due to a controversy, and the structure where the pods were located has been destroyed. As the years go by, Joe and Rita remain dormant in the pod. Despite how awful things appear to be for the two, they are much worse for humanity. At a startling rate, human stupidity is growing. With time, the average intelligence metric declines. The most brilliant scientists in the world are concentrating on foolish experiments like trying to reverse hair loss and prolong erections, despite the fact that some people have high hopes that genetic engineering and technology will be able to stop this trend of evolution. Until the year 2505, the population multiplies rapidly and intelligence continues to deteriorate. People have been trying to find solutions to everyday issues like waste disposal for a very long time. Therefore, the trash has been piled up for generations without any design. The result is the 2505 Great Garbage Avalanche. Additionally, Joe's hibernation pod accidentally ends up at a random home one day due to a significant rubbish avalanche. Joe exits the pod feeling dizzy and uncertain. Frito Pendejo resides in residence. When a stranger enters his home and a mound of trash is present, Frito disregards them and continues watching bizarre TV. He stands up to tell Joe to be quiet. We can see that he has a toilet built into his couch, so he won't have to get up constantly. Joe is then kicked out of the window by him. Joe feels perplexed by the outside world and thinks, so much has changed in just a year. But he is unaware that he has arrived in the year 2505. He notices a gathering of grunting slang-speaking individuals by the side of the road. Although Joe can understand them, they usually call him names and shoo him away when he speaks. A perplexed Joe chooses to visit a local hospital because he also feels dizzy. He walks to the reception and informs the woman that he is from the army. The woman hits one of the numerous buttons on her desk because she doesn't comprehend anything. A voice instructs Joe to head to the diagnostic section on the right. He goes to a water fountain to get some water, confused because it only has an energy drink named Brawndo. When Joe asks a passerby where he may bring water, the man mocks Joe for wanting to drink toilet water. It is discovered that everyone uses Brawndo instead of water for daily tasks like drinking, bathing, and cleaning toilets. The diagnostic region is where he goes next, where he must insert plugs into his mouth, ear, and anus. The medical practitioner places the wrong plugs in the places where he has already placed them. After the treatment, a disgruntled Joe is taken to the doctor. He notices the year 2505 scribbled on a magazine as he is waiting but brushes it off as a typo. When the doctor shows up, he calls Joe's inquiries regarding his health kick ass. Additionally, he proclaims Joe to be mentally retarded and demands a $5 billion charge. Joe suddenly notices that the bill has 2505 inscribed on it. He suddenly understands that he has genuinely spent 500 years inside the pod. When Joe almost doesn't believe it and goes to the window, he is shocked to discover the city's current state. Some buildings are being kept together by ropes as they collapse on top of one another. The city is also overrun with rubbish. In the meantime, Joe's lack of a citizen tattoo on his wrist freaks out the doctor, as the doctor summons the police on Joe for not paying his medical cost. Joe panics and flees the facility. Joe has awakened to a world in peril, a voice narrates. The nation's top movie is Ass. The economy needs repair, and vast Dust Bowl has destroyed all food supply. He watches the Oscar-winning film only to spend the first 90 minutes staring at someone's backside. He is detained overnight for being unscannable and brought before a judge. He is then assigned a lawyer there who happens to be Frito Pendejo, the man Joe initially met in 2505. He is made fun of by Frito while the court chuckles. Joe makes a persuasive argument and explains why he cannot be scanned, but the attorneys and court merely laugh at him. Finally, the judge finds him guilty and jail time is imposed. Rita emerges from the pod simultaneously and attempts to get in touch with her manager and boyfriend, Upgrade. She tries to call him, but the phone demands $2,000 before she can do so. Just then, a man approaches her and she fools him into giving her his money. Joe is also brought to a facility that uses automated tattooing, where residents receive identity tattoo that makes them scannable. When the machine asks his name, Joe begins to say that he is unsure what is happening. The machine interprets his name as not sure and tattoos it on his wrist. His immediate surroundings begin referring to him as not sure. Then he is brought in for an aptitude and IQ test while being quizzed on fundamental addition. Joe is startled to observe people around him who cannot recognize forms as he correctly responds to each question. He is then brought to prison. He eventually starts to see how foolish everyone in modern society is. He therefore informs the guard that he is expected to leave custody today. The incompetent guard lets him go, but the alarms detect his escape. The cops pursue him around the neighborhood. Joe finds a means to escape from them and returns to Frito's home. He asks Frito for assistance locating a time machine because he thinks one was built during the last 500 years. Although Frito is unwilling to assist Joe, Joe convinces him by proposing to pay him $8 billion in exchange for his assistance. Frito eventually admits that he is aware of the location of the time machine. The police arrive at the door shortly after seeking Joe. The two travel to the museum after escaping out the window. They run across Rita, who is still defrauding the same man as they go. While still unaware that Upgrade has already passed away, Rita gets into the car and worries that he will come after her for the money she owes him. Joe's wrist is scanned as they moved along, and the police are informed of his location. They exit the vehicle when the battery dies. The police then approach the car and begin to fire at it. Soon, several join in and the fighting begins. To reach the time machine, Joe, Frito, and Rita elude capture. After that, Joe drives the two to Costco, which is now the hub of activity. Even more outrageous, he says he studied law at Costco. Rita uses the restroom while they wait for the metro. Before she comes back, Joe's wrist is inadvertently scanned, alerting everyone to the presence of a thief. Frito boards the metro when it arrives, but Joe waits for Rita only to be apprehended by the police. But this time, rather than being brought to jail, he is transported to the White House. A bewildered Joe runs across President Camacho and his secretaries there. Camacho makes fun of him by remarking that he assumed Joe's skull would be larger due to his intelligence. All of them were startled by Joe's IQ score on the jail IQ test because it was the highest one they had ever seen. Joe gets appointed as the next Secretary of the Interior by the President as a result of his intelligence. They also proclaim Joe to be the world's brightest man, which surprises Joe. Everyone then heads to the House of Representatives where the President declares that their new Interior Secretary, Mr. Not Sure, will deal with the issues of food scarcity and dust storms. He also guarantees that Joe's prison sentence will be lifted if he finds a solution. The secretaries ask Joe to offer something insightful during a cabinet meeting. Joe uses some seemingly random complex terms to convince them that he is in fact intelligent. Then, until he can divert the secretaries, Joe instructs Frito to sketch a map of where the time machine is located. Later, he heads them to a field intended for crop cultivation. Rita might be able to assist them with the crops, so he also asks them to get her. Now that everyone has arrived at the field, Frito sneakily gives Joe the map. Rita shows up at the exact moment. Joe pulls her aside with the intention of utilizing the map to flee. When he realizes Frito's map is nothing more than a line, his scheme is doomed. Joe then realizes that individuals have been using the energy drink Brawndo to water the crops. He calls a cabinet meeting to discuss switching to water from Brawn. The secretaries despise his concept. So, rather than trying to reason with them, he informs them that he can communicate with plants and that they want water. Joe is unaware that the energy drink had led to the development of salt over topsoil, killing plants and causing the dust storms. He is therefore truly resolving their issues. Everything is going according to plan for a few days. But due to the decreased production, the stock of the energy drink Brawndo soon falls to nothing. The result is that the unemployment rate is 50%. Outside the White House, they riot. According to the report, Joe was charged with causing unemployment and found guilty. He is given a one-night rehabilitation term. In the modern world, rehabilitation takes the form of a big truck chasing a criminal through an arena while an audience cheers for the truck. The criminal's death usually brings rehabilitation to an end. Rita regrettably returns to the White House in preparation for her trip to the time machine with Frito as Joe is escorted to the arena. National television carries the rehabilitation. Joe is driving in a minor automobile while being pursued by a huge murdering truck. Rita sees a rose plant blossoming outside at the very moment. She asks Frito to drive her to the arena after realizing Joe's plan to water the plants had succeeded. She intends to air the crops on television to have Joe's punishment overturned. Joe is still attempting to escape the death vehicle at this time. Rita arrives on schedule and offers to pay a cameraman to accompany Frito and photograph the crops as they grow. She then goes to the control panel in the monitoring room and takes it over. Finally, reaching the field, Frito records the crops. The video is shown on the big screen. When President Camacho sees this, he spares Joe's life and commutes his sentence, which causes the crowd to explode in applause. Everyone is currently enjoying a frat party in the White House. Rita admits that she prefers the future and does not want to return home. Joe is taken aback but doesn't pressurize her to accompany him. As they say their final goodbyes, the president summons Joe to the stage and appoints him as the new vice president. Joe consents to remain in 2505 because everyone is looking at him with optimism. The time machine is then described as a foolish ride by one guy. When Joe is brought to the device by Frito, it is eventually made clear that the time machine is essentially a kiddie ride. A few months pass before the scene is cut off and Joe has been elected President of the United States, with Rita becoming his wife and First Lady. A new period began under his direction and people thought humanity would once more be capable of intelligence. Even his 3 children with Rita are reputed to be among the world's brightest children. Well, that's it for today. Turn on the notice, turn on your subscription for more videos like this, and leave a like to support.